Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. Today, we are going to be talking about our labor distribution and effort reporting solution. Here's our agenda for today. So quickly going through introductions, then we will be talking about the solution at a high level. And then the next two bullets is where we're going to be spending the majority of our time talking about the labor cost distribution functionality, as well as the effort reporting or effort certification. And then lastly, just we'll show a couple slides on the committed and workload planning solution. So my name is Jessica Mann. I am from SpearMC. I head up our PeopleSoft grants practice and have been doing PeopleSoft for quite some time. And really the last 20 years have been focusing on PeopleSoft grants management, which includes the full suite of modules, grants, project costing, contracts, billing, AR, and commitment control. And now our integration with our labor distribution and effort reporting bolt-on solution. At SpearMC, if you are not familiar with us already, we focus on PeopleSoft. That's what we do. Here's kind of our key pillars. Of course, traditional consulting services. We can help in all the areas of HCM, financials, as well as campus solutions. We do offer managed services, so application support both on the functional and technical side. We do testing as a service, or roadmap services has been very popular lately. In terms of Oracle Cloud, we can help with your lift and shift to Oracle Cloud infrastructure. And then on the emerging technology side, always new and exciting areas that we can help with in terms of Kibana or Elasticsearch, chatbots. And then on the training side of things, we do lots and lots of training, both live virtual trainings, which has basically been the last couple of years. It'll be interesting to see if and when we shift back to in-person training. And then also we have content that you can purchase directly from our website, including our All Access Learning Pass. And then lastly, proprietary products, such as the one that we're talking about today. We have a tool for PTF, PeopleSoft Test Framework, called our Testing Grounds. And then we also have a solution for lease administration for GASB 87. We were very proud to be the sole featured PeopleSoft vendor in the latest 2022 Gartner Market Guide for Oracle Professional Services. So once again, if you are interested in moving to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, we'd be happy to talk to you about it. And we are SOX 2 certified. And also I wanted to mention, if especially for higher ed, we are now a vendor in E&I if you do your sourcing through E&I. We do have coast-to-coast coverage, and while we primarily do work in the US, we are also expanding and doing more and more projects in Canada, as well as other countries. Okay, here's my reminder slide to kick off a little poll. So I've told you a little bit about me and about us, and now I have one little question to get more information about you. So the question is, are you currently using PeopleSoft Grants Management? So you should see the poll. I see some votes coming in. So either yes, you're on it, no, planning to implement in the future, no, not at this time. And the last option would be not sure. Give it just another second here. And I would also like to say we're going to be taking, have time for questions at the end, but feel free to put questions into the questions area anytime during the webinar, and we'll try to address them either during the presentation or at the very end. Okay, so I'm not sure if you guys actually can see the results or not, but it looks like 80% of the votes are in and 66% are showing yes on grants management, 5% planning to implement in the future, and about 18% not at this time, and 12% not sure. Cool, that's very helpful. Thanks for doing the poll. All right, let's go into the solution overview. Okay, so this bolt-on solution is 100% people tools. It's 100% people tool solution built with 100% custom objects. So that means it's very minimally impacted by upgrades or images, zero to no, very little impact as you're doing those PUM updates. It is highly configurable. So you're going to be hearing me say that word a lot throughout the presentation. And it allows you to do labor cost distribution and effort certification. One of my favorite parts of it is it allows you to very easily do redistributions at the employee level and have that information carried forward both to the GL and project costing if you're using project costing. It does do benefit calculations, so you have options here. You can either have benefits be distributed in the same percentage as the regular payroll, or we can actually have the system do a sophisticated benefits calculation for you based on various factors. So options around benefits, it does include workflow, so we'll see that during this presentation, as well as some dashboard reporting. So the solution is comprised of 3 different modules that integrate together. We're going to be spending our time today talking about the LCD certified module. Sometimes we also call it EDB. And then there are 2 other modules that are optional. You don't have to implement them together, but it does come with the solution, the committed module, as well as the workload planning module. All right, so high-level overview about each of those modules. So for LCD, the certified module, it really does a nice job of addressing the challenges or even the limitations, gaps of functionality related to distributing payroll, doing the salary cap, and effort certification. So it can not only distribute that new payroll coming in, but allow you to go back and easily do redistributions, not only moving your time around to different projects, but if you, for example, have a change in benefits fringe rates, you can also have this system go back retroactively and apply a change in fringe benefits rates, which is a huge win, I think. And then lastly, it allows you to manage your committed and over the cap cost share requirements. So we'll be talking more about that. On the committed module, so this kind of shifts, LCD is really more of a picture of how we're distributing an individual's time. The committed effort module sort of pivots over to the project level and allows you to look at a project and a project team and tracks the commitments of individuals over the lifetime of a sponsored project, allowing you to kind of have this ebb and flow of effort, but over time, making sure that you're meeting the overall commitment to a sponsor. Then the last module, the total workload planning. Here, we are really looking at how does a person plan to spend their time. So basically, this is tracking the total professional commitments for research and non-research over a period of time. Okay, so let's go a little bit more in detail and see what that labor cost distribution solution looks like. But first, I wanted to talk about the integration. So this is just a very high-level sample example of what the integration might look like. It does, in this example, assume or show the integration with PeopleSoft Grants Management, but that is not a requirement. You don't even have to use project costing to use this solution. So the majority of our customers do have grants management, but that is not a requirement. And then also where this module actually sits. So we have here this green box for the bolt-on. Here I'm showing you it living over in financials. But if you have PeopleSoft HCM, technically it could also live over there. So we have options on the integration with the bolt-on solution. If you are using PeopleSoft Grants Management, so the boxes in blue are representing the Grants Management suite, and then we have some supply chain integration down here, inventory, and then of course receivables feeding in from billing. For the bolt-on, how it typically works for Grants Management is that we have payroll and HR information that is going to be configured in the interface to be brought into the bolt-on. I should point out too, it doesn't have to be PeopleSoft HCM. We can integrate in from any payroll, HR, and time and attendance system. So, but there is a minimum of data elements that we do need to feed in for payroll and HR information into LCD. And then it's based on the distribution profile, which we'll see in a minute. It will distribute the payroll, send it both to the general ledger, which can also be budget checked. And then once that journal is posted, we will send it at the detailed level into project costing through the delivered project costing interface. And then it would obviously carry forward the detail level information like the employee ID and the pay end date. Okay, so sample example of what it might look like, but lots of different ways that integration might look depending on what systems you're using today. Okay, so I mentioned distribution profile already. This is where we enter in how do we want to distribute an employee's time. So I just want to point out here, this is obviously demo data for Walt Disney here. So I haven't masked any of the dollar amounts. So just rest assured, it is just dummy data here for our example. But it shows you how the solution allows you to distribute either by percentages, as we're seeing here, or hours, or we can also distribute by dollars. It allows us to automatically calculate a salary cap and cost sharing amounts. And how this page is displayed can be configured to each organization. So we call it, configuring it by groups and categories of time. In this example, you'll see we have just two in the blue, the sponsored projects. So these are going to be our grants going to a project ID down below, and up above, everything else going to non-sponsored activities, which is a department. We'll show you a couple other examples how it might be configured. We do have the ability to configure approval routings, both not only for this distribution profile, how to distribute your time, but also we'll see it on the effort reporting side. We have configurable validation rules, and those rules actually, you can determine how strict the validation rule is. So it could be just a warning. It could be a message where it will allow you to save your data that you entered, but not proceed until you've made a correction. or it could be a total hard stop and not even allow you to save. So for example, if somebody entered effort greater than 100%, that's never valid, and therefore don't even allow them to save that entry. So very helpful to be able to configure validation rules. And then also in terms of precision and what level of decimals you want to display, that is also configurable. So configurable precision on units of measure. Here are a couple other examples of how you could configure that page. So here in this example on the left, we have 3 different categories of time. So sponsored projects, so going to our grants, our research projects. Underneath that, we have the non-sponsor projects, so going to a project ID but not being funded externally. And then on the very top, the non-sponsored activities going to a department. Off on the right, a much more simple view of things. We're just 2 different groupings and limiting the project ID just to the actual value, no description. So a couple of different ways that you can configure it. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the cost sharing and salary cap feature. It is really broken out in the system into 3 different categories. So mandatory cost sharing over the cap, which is the salary cap, and voluntary cost sharing. So mandatory cost sharing is something that you need to track that is required by the sponsor as a condition for the proposal or as a part of accepting the award. So it's required as part of the grant. Over the cap is basically where a project has a specified salary cap that you cannot charge beyond, specified by the sponsor. And then the voluntary cost sharing is effort that is being applied to the grant, but it's not required by the sponsor. It's just something that for your organization that you want to track. So there's 3 different buckets. And as you're on a distribution profile and you click the cost sharing detailed view, this is where you can actually see the breakdown of that distribution. So here in the very middle, we have, well, I guess I should start at the top. On the top, we have a grant, just has effort. Everything's being charged to direct salaries. There's no cost sharing, no salary cap. In the middle, we do have a requirement by the sponsor to cost share 10%. So we have 10% of the overall 30% effort. The system automatically calculates this as a mandatory 3%. And then this final project has a cap, a salary cap that is specified for this grant. And in this case, the system is doing the calculation, and it knows that this is the over the cap calculation based on the individual's salary. And it's blue, so we can drill down into that information and actually see the calculation for that that percentage. So we see the salary cap amount, where the source of the salary cap is coming from, which I'll talk more about in just a second, what the annual salary amount is, and then ultimately we're getting to an over the cap percentage. Okay, so like many things in PeopleSoft, there is the ability to have a hierarchy for setting a salary cap amount for a project. So it can flow in from the flow through sponsor. So if you're familiar with grants and the concept of a pass through or a flow through functionality in grants, it could come from the primary sponsor, that cap from the primary sponsor. It can come from the sponsor on the award. It can also be set on the project level. And even lower level than that, there is the ability to set a salary cap for specific roles on a project. Okay, so this could be applicable for K awards, or you really do need to get a little bit more granular on the cap. Okay, so I mentioned in the integration flow that if you're using grants, the typical integration will be from the bolt-on, very similar to well, basically it is journal generation, but it's from a custom table. So the labor distribution system will calculate its distributions, debits and credits, and then journal generator will then bring it into the GL, and it will budget check and post, and then after it's been posted in the GL, we can then distribute it to project costing and carry forward that journal ID from the GL, which is very helpful for reconciliation. Okay, redistributions. It uses the concept of effective dating and sequences. So basically allows you to go back in time and put in a new effective date sequence and change the distribution and recalculate what it would been, what it should have been from that change going forward, and brings that change into the current period, but carries forward the employee level information like the employee ID and pay end date. No limit on the number of times you do a redistribution. And I mentioned this nice feature where you can go back and retroactively also calculate a benefit rate change. So we run into that a lot, especially in healthcare, where we don't quite get our fringe rate until we've already charged the payroll. So the ability to go back and have the system do this automatically for you is a big win, I think. All right, so now I wanted to show you a little demo of what this might look like. So we're going to go through a few different videos telling the story of labor distribution and eventually getting to effort certification. Okay, so let me kick this off here. In the story, we have a new employee that's starting to work on projects. So we're going to go ahead and establish a distribution profile. So obviously we can look the employee up from the lookup box or type it in, put in our as of date. And then here is our initial distribution page. Based on our configuration, we can add one or multiple projects. So let's bring in our first project ID. Okay, and then we can go ahead and add another project. In this particular configuration, the non-sponsored activities effort will automatically be calculated based on basically the balance of the amount that you're not distributing to sponsor projects, but that's configuration 2. You can also have the other sections where you enter in each of the efforts. So we have our 2 projects, one that does include mandatory cost sharing. So we have 100% effort accounted for, and if we drill into the cost sharing, we can see we have a commitment of 10%. For this project, where overall we're just working 30%, and then we can submit it for approval. And that approval path, once again, is configurable. How many steps it needs to go through is determined by each organization, and what options they have as they go through approvals is also configurable. Okay, so we have our initial distribution. We have our 60% going to the department, and then 1030. Okay. We are next going, you know what? Hold on, I want to make sure I just, oh, yes, okay. I did have one more video I wanted to show you before we go into effort reporting, which is showing you how easy it is to go in and do a redistribution. So we entered this initially at 10 and 30%. Payroll could have run many, many times. And now we realize, oh shoot, we really were working on 3 projects. So, you know, whether you're doing this change now or after the fact, the process is really the same. So let's, I'm so sorry. Get myself confused here. Okay, so let's see that redistribution video. Okay, so notice the last one we just entered was sequence 1. We're going to add a new sequence for the same effective date. So we want these changes to be applied as the beginning of time for this employee, 5/22. So now we're on sequence 2. We're going to go ahead and add an additional project. We made a mistake, didn't realize it was 3 projects that we were working on. And we're going to add now the 40% effort. So the department goes down automatically to the 20%. And we can see this project does have a salary cap, which is automatically calculated by the system for you. So putting in a percentage over the cap for every time that the payroll is coming in. Okay, so we've reviewed the cost sharing, including the salary cap. And once again, we need to, this is a change, we need to go ahead and submit it for approvals. And like I said, the options that we have here in the actions is configurable. What can that individual do? Okay, so that was the redistribution. Now, let's talk about the effort reporting solution. All right, so effort certification allows you to take pay periods and consolidate them into effort periods. So you define what those effort periods are, whether it's a month, it's quarterly, every 2 months, how often you want to require people to certify is totally configurable. And it also has its own workflow that is configurable. How many steps you want it to go through is up to you. So it may just be 3 steps, which is what we're going to show in the video. We have others where it's actually been 5 steps. So that's a part of the decision making as part of the implementation. What you see as you go through effort certification, as you would expect, is role specific. So not only what you see on the page, but also the actions that you take as a part of the workflow is configurable. There is also the ability to have role-specific validation. So we talked about the configurable validations before. These are even at the role level. It allows you to have that full audit trail. You do have the ability to enter tolerances. So, you know, you may have a rule, a policy within your organization that as you're certifying, as long as you're within, you know, 2 to 5%, then that's fine. There doesn't need to be an additional adjustment made to moving payroll around. So optionally, you can use tolerances, and then obviously we can also track comments. Okay, so here we're looking now at an effort certification page. Structurally, it's very similar to the distribution profile. And once again, based on your role, what you see here is configurable. So we see employee dummy data up here, salary information. Do you want somebody to see that? Payroll dollars. We have the option to show the payroll distribution percent hours as well as the overall effort percent. Okay, let's see. So I think I highlighted most of my points here. Okay, so let's go ahead. This is yeah, an example of what an award administrator might see, where they do see the payroll dollars. You can once again click into the cost sharing button to see the breakdown of your cost sharing percentages as well as dollars. Okay, so from this particular effort period, that we see the total payroll amount, the over the cap percentage, and then the split between the direct salaries and the over the cap. Okay, so now I'm coming to my effort certification example. So step one in this workflow is the award admin coming in to take a quick look. If it looks good, I got my 10, 30, 40% that I was expecting, I can say, yep, let's go ahead, send it to the certifier, the PI. Okay, and we'll log out and come back in for the next step of the workflow, which is the PI or the knowledgeable person. Notice now we're just seeing, it's a little bit cleaner, less details. We're just seeing the effort percent. They're actually saying, oh, actually, no, I did only work 30% on that project. We thought it was going to be 40. It really turned out to be 30. So they have the ability, you know, based on their role, to update the effort percent. And once they're happy with that, they can click certify to move it along in workflow. Once again, the options they have are configurable. And here, oops, I should have paused it a little bit more. So configurable based on what actions they have, and also if you would like to make them check the box to make sure they're reading your certification message, which obviously also is configurable. So they clicked OK, but did not check the box, and we're saying, no, you can't proceed. So go ahead and click OK to the message and say, OK, yes, I truly do. I agree with the message, and I'm going to click the box certifying and click OK. Okay, so the PI did their part. They've entered the amounts, and now in this next step, the award admin is coming in to review and see if it's good to push forward. Well, in this case, no, the PI has actually certified a different effort percent, right? So there is, here's an example of that validation error that no, entered effort is less than the paid distribution amount. So that means we do, you know, based on the tolerance percentages, we do need to go back and do a redistribution. So I know you guys have seen the redistribution already, but that's part of the story here. So we're going to go ahead and add that redistribution, which would be sequence 3 now. So we're going back, same effective date in this example, and we are going to update the general surgery project to be 30%. And we will send that off for approvals. Once again, since this is on the distribution profile, that approval path that you choose is configurable. Oh, I am so sorry. I think I clicked next. I'm going to have to catch us up. Okay, where were we? Okay, we updated the amount. Okay. And we will click approve, send it through approvals. Okay, which will allow the system to automatically calculate that redistribution. And now the award admin can come back into effort distribution, see that now it has been updated to match what the employee said, and I can go ahead and finalize this effort certification. It cleared the errors, and now we're done. It's updated to finalized. The end. So one thing I wanted to stress here is that, you know, in that example we showed, the PI did enter a change in effort as part of the effort certification. So he bumped it back down to 30. Notice that it with this configuration, we did not require the PI to recertify. So we, as a part of the business process allowed that redistribution to happen, to get corrected, but the PI did not have to go back and recertify, which from our experience has been a pain point. So this is a really nice way to be able to configure the workflow to make sure everything is accounted for without having to do the double certification. Okay, so lastly, I wanted to show you some examples of the dashboard reporting. So this information is you'll only see the information that an employee has security to. And so at the top, we see graphically, visually see where where the distribution effort certification is in each of the workflow approval steps. So in this example, we did have 5. And so you can click into each of these graphs. So if I click into the PI certify, then I can see the details behind which all employees are still on that step of the process. And then in the middle here, the configurable validation rules can be displayed, so I know if there's anything unusual that we need to take action on. Okay, that's the dashboard. And then wanted to come back and just give you a couple of visuals on the 2 other modules, committed and workflow planning. Okay, so coming into the committed module, here's how we see the pivot for a particular project ID. We can see the team members and their effort percentage over time, which can go up and down, but overall, as we get to an average, we can see whether the effort percentage is meeting the sponsor requirement. Okay, and then lastly, the workload planning. We see for back kind of pivoting to the employee at the top. For a particular employee, we can see over time how an individual plans to spend their time over the various types of activities. Okay. Oh, I totally forgot to even look at any questions in the chat. But now, or in the questions section, let's see. Do we have any questions? Oh, we do. Oh my gosh, it was so small I couldn't see it. Okay. I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger for me. So the first question is, will this recording be available for sharing for those unable to make the live presentation? And it does, oh gosh, look like Susan has answered it already. Let's see. So sorry, I need to stretch this out and it's not cooperating. Aha, I see the answers. Yay. Okay, yes, so we will receive, if you sign up for the webinar, you will receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording. Will these slides be sent out after the webinar? That is a good question, Susan. I don't know if that's automatic or if I can just send it out to individuals, but I do see that Kathleen, we will certainly make sure you get a copy of it. Okay, what information is needed from payroll HCM to LCD module? That is another really great question too. We do have like a list of tables that we bring into the module. I don't have them all memorized at the top of my head, but we can certainly send you that in a follow-up email. Okay, next question. Q interview phone. Is it possible to receive the slides and or video? Okay, I think we covered that. Does the next question, does the solution require use of Teams functionality in project costing? So no, you don't have, as I mentioned earlier on at the beginning of the presentation, you do not have to even have project costing implemented in order to use the bolt-on. So you do not have to use the use of the project costing teams. You could enter that information directly into the bolt-on. Next question, does the LCD module ignore employee records within a payroll file which does not have a LCD profile? LCD module ignore employee records within a file which does not have an LCD profile. I think yes. So, and perhaps Jason, you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of these answers. It will let you, there's actually, we should have included that. There's a nice little dashboard that tells you as the payroll information is coming in, if any of those records do not have an associated distribution profile. So it will let you know if any of those records don't, but yes, it would ignore it and not process any redistribution for it or new distribution for it. Are the redistributions able to automatically adjust for salary cap and other cost sharing? So yes, all components of the original transaction are adjusted.
That was supposed to say fringes as well. So, yeah, so cost sharing, transactions, and fringes. Sorry, fat fingers this one.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else, Jason, while you're piping in? Anything you wanted to add to the last question? Let's see, I can move this over here. Does the LCD module ignore employee records within a payroll file? Anything else you wanted to add to that one?
Yeah, there's a section in the LCD system where you specify which employees you want to bring in, and then you would set up cost center groups for them. If you don't, I'm sorry, distribution profiles for the ones you want distributed. It will identify everybody in all of the payrolls that you're processing. If there isn't a profile set up for somebody, it will leave it behind, and it ignores it until, if at a later time you add a profile for that person, it will go back to the begin date of that profile you added and pull things in. So let's say you added a person, a person was working on a grant for 3 months and you didn't know it, and you add a backdated profile in as of today, it will have ignored their payroll for the past 3 months because there's no profile. But when you put it in and backdate that profile, it'll go back and get the transactions at that point. So it ignores it, but it doesn't flag it for no further processing. It leaves it as available in case you need to pull it in later.
Yeah, good point. Thanks for adding that point. Okay, so I think the last question, oh, we got one more. One question is, are the certifications done after each pay period? I mentioned in the effort certification, it is configurable how you define your effort certification periods. Jason, did you want to expand on that one a little bit more?
Which one?
This is the effort. Are the effort certifications done after each pay period?
You get to decide that. So we have clients that consolidate 6 months worth of pay periods together into one certification process. We have other clients that do it a lot more frequently, either quarterly, and one of our clients actually is doing it on a monthly basis. And on a monthly basis, when they do it, they're actually just pulling in 2 pay periods together. You have the option of doing it every single pay period if you would like to. You have the option of consolidating it in whatever form makes sense to your organization.
Thank you. Okay, and just going back to clarifying again, clarifying question on the redistributions, being able to automatically adjust for salary cap or other cost sharing. Yes, so it would, if you're moving from one project to another project, one project has salary cap or cost sharing, the other does not, it will take it out in whole from the project that you're moving out of, along with the salary cap and effort certification, and then reevaluate it as it goes to the new project. Does that new project have any salary cap or cost sharing? If it does, then it will apply it. Okay. Let's see. I think we made it to the bottom of the list and answered all the questions.
Hey, Jessica. Did you see the last question, or maybe I missed it? What people tools version and image will this bolt-on work with?
No, that's weird. I'm at the bottom of my list. That's a great question. What people tools and image number is required for the bolt-on? Is that what you said?
Yep. What people tools version and image will this bolt-on work with?
The bolt-on has been around for a very long time. So I don't believe there is a minimum. Jason, anything else you want to add to that one?
I would need to defer to our development team if there's a minimum that is required. I mean, there are, we have implemented this in, much older versions. It's been, in production since at least 15 or more years at some organizations. The current iteration of it is up to date with the current tools release. So there are probably, if you had a particularly old tools release, it would work there, but we might need to take a look at some of the more recent features and whether or not adjustments would need to be made to get it into an older tool stack. So it's more of a technical question. We definitely can go backwards quite a ways, but there might be some features that we've added in the past year or two that would need to be tweaked a little bit.
Susan, are you seeing any more questions?
I think we've got them all. And did you answer the one, how does an LCD get inactivated?
No.
For example, is there an end date on the profile?
So yeah. Jason, why don't you take that one too? It looks like it's sort of like midway.
Effectively what you're describing is how you would do it. The mechanics of how you'd do that would be you would insert a new effective dated row and take the person off of grants. That's one approach. You can also just inactivate the person from being processed within LCD. If this is a person that's left your organization and you've cleaned up any old payroll transfers, you can just drop that person from the system. But if you if the person has just come off of all of their grants, you would simply put in a new effective dated row and set it to their default profile and or their default payroll distribution coming in from HCM, and that effectively handles that for you. So there's 2 or 3 different ways it can be done depending on what the particular scenario is.
Then looks like there's one other.
We got 2 more questions that just popped up.
Okay. What impact is there from updates to PUMs? So I did talk about this at the very beginning. Very, very minimal. You know, if it's a people tools update, you know, there could be a chance you have to make just a slight tweak to the interfaces. But really, you know, from our experience, there have been very little impact on any of the PUM updates, just because it really was built intentionally to be not impacted by updates. It's their own custom objects. We're not updating any of the delivered objects within the bolt-on. It is all 100% custom objects. Provide update code. I'm not seeing our certification. Okay. What was the other one, Susan? Is it do you provide update code?
Yep. Do you provide updated code? And then another question just popped up too. Is the bolt-on part of the installation options?
I see. This is so strange. I don't know how this orders the questions here. Is the bolt-on part of the installation options? No, there is no setting that you would specifically choose on the installation options. It is essentially, you know, yeah, you don't turn it on at all from the installation options. It's going to be working with your existing modules. Let's see. So Jason, I don't know, do you want to comment on the do you provide updated code? I think that means kind of like releases.
Yeah, I think so. So, well, on the installation options, the entire thing is a custom bolt-on. So it doesn't. It's not like a, you know, installation options. Typically, those are saying, you know, am I turning on this module or not? You know, it's robust and configurable like a full module of PeopleSoft, but it is completely custom. So there really isn't anything in installation options for it. You would install it and use it, or it's just not there to choose from. In terms of providing updated code, I'm going to assume that by that you mean, you know, if we implement this for you and then go off and implement it at a couple of other places and make some improvements to it or add some new features, are we going to, you know, send that back your way? We can. You know, I wouldn't. You know, I think that we would probably. It would fall into the category of whether or not you want that is kind of an it depends thing. We can send it back to you, but you won't necessarily be able to simply turn it on and start using it. You know, everything that we do is built with configuration and flexibility in mind, and it should be something that's fairly straightforward. And in a lot of cases, to just say, hey, there's a new feature with some new configuration, you can turn it on. But you know, as you all know, the devil's in the details with PeopleSoft, and whether or not it has impact to business processes or integration, the way you've chosen to configure it and that sort of thing. You know, everybody has their own set of chart fields and business units, and not everybody shares the same approach to integrating with HCM. So yes, the code, we would be more than happy to provide it to anybody that was interested if there were new features. More likely than not, we would recommend that we provide some services to go along with that to figure out with you if it makes sense for you to use it, and if so, how to effectively set it up in your system.
Sounds good.
then we just had one more question again, or a few questions here. The first, can we integrate the PeopleSoft commitment accounting module with LCD module?
So commitment accounting is basically a method of using payroll accounting distribution within the HCM PeopleSoft system. Is that, if that's the area that you're referring to, then yes, if you're using commitment accounting for accounting distribution as opposed to the job record, which some folks use to set up the initial distribution that's sent from HCM over to financials. Yeah, if you're using commitment accounting, we can take the data from there. If you're using job, we can take it from there. If you're integrating with API or another system, we could take the data from that system as well. The key is to make sure that we design with you business processes that work effectively between those two things. There are capabilities of the commitment accounting module that would be redundant to some of the things that we're doing in LCD. And you would want to make sure that you're establishing very clean, well thought out, well managed business processes to ensure the integrity of your data. But as far as commitment accounting being the data source for the initial feed from HCM over to financials, absolutely, no problem.
Okay, Susan, I think I got just one more. I finally realized how to start this. I'm going to follow with Lenny after the webinar on that last question. I just wanted, we have just 4 minutes left here. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for attending the webinar and also for all of your questions and interest. So 2 things I wanted to put out there. So one, for those that have not implemented PeopleSoft grants yet, I wanted to let you know we work very closely with Oracle, and we basically do all of their demos for grants management. So if you're interested in, seeing a little bit more of the functionality of grants management, whether it's on the pre-award side, post-award side, or honestly, even if you're current and you're using PeopleSoft grants management, if you've been live for a while and would like to just see what does the latest and greatest PUM updates look like, just to make sure, hey, there's no features that we haven't been using, very happy to do a demo for you at any point. So that's the grants management side of things. And then for this bolt-on in particular, so we've hopefully given you a lot of great information about what the tool can do, the functionality. But if you wanted to set up some time to look at it a little bit more detail, look at any of the configuration pages, talk about your organization's specific requirements, we are happy to set that up at any time too. And then there was, let me just, looks like we have 1 more minute. Is it required the funding be originated in each one could be internationally? And yeah, and so just a reminder, because I saw 1 more question come in here. Regarding kind of where the data initiates and lives. So we do have various options there. The bolt-on can reside over in financials, or technically it can reside over in HCM. And you do not need to have PeopleSoft grants management in order to implement it. And really, there are data requirements that do need to be brought into the bolt-on. It needs to know about the employees and how much they're getting paid and that sort of thing. But we don't necessarily. We can enter projects and employee information into the bolt-on without having to feed from PeopleSoft grants management.
Jessica, let me just add one little spin on that. If by is the funding required to originate in HCM, you mean, do you need some accounting distribution to initially be set up in HCM? No, you don't need to. But I don't think, I think typically there's at least a default, even if it's just being charged to the employee's home department. If by that, do you mean, does the funding mean, does the payroll transaction have to originate in HCM, or can it be entered initially in LCD? We do not create payroll transactions out of LCD. We're simply redistributing or applying the accounting to the dollars that are created from some external source. So if by funding you mean the actual dollars being created, that's not something that's intended, that LCD is intended to do. But if those dollars are created from any other source, we can pull them in and set up the accounting distribution however you need.
Awesome. All right. Well, we are at time. Want to be respectful of everybody's time. But once again, thank you for joining. And if you come up with any other questions that you'd like to discuss, or once again see a demo of grants or the LCD, happy to do that. And happy holidays to everybody.